On today's video, I'm gonna show you how to make the best carne guisada pitmaster style.
A true pitmaster wastes nothing. So today we're saving the meat from our competition brisket trim for our carne guisada.
Definitely the biggest brisket that I've ever bought. Just gotta get aggressive, gigantic.
Love it or hate it, competition brisket requires a heavy trim. But with marbling like this, we're definitely not mad about it. You can use these trimmings for everything from ground beef and burgers to homemade sausage and stews. If I don't plan on using these trimmings right away, I seal them with a good quality vacuum sealer and put them in the freezer. From these trimmings, we were able to get around 2 pounds of brisket cubed up for carne guisada.
Now the cubed up brisket is expected, but one of my favorite things to add to carne guisada is gonna be some pork ribs. I learned this trick from one of my really good friends, Fred Robles of Rio Valley Meats. We had a carne guisada at a barbecue competition one day, and he told me to watch out for the bones because he throws his trimmed up ribs in there. So this is something that I like to add, and it definitely brings that pitmaster vibe. There's a little membrane here that I'm gonna pull off just to make sure that we get all of that good meat exposed. And I also see some cartilage here that I don't like, so I'm gonna take this off as well. Now we'll just cut in between each one of these rib bones. And this right here is what we're gonna be adding to our carne guisada, so we're gonna have the pork and the beef. Now that our meat's all prepped up, we're gonna put our Dutch oven inside of our Weber Kettle attachment. It fits right here in this little circle. And then we're gonna go ahead and put our lid right on. And the reason that we're putting this Dutch oven on now while these coals are nice and hot is because we want to sear this meat for our carne guisada. That's going to add a lot of flavor, and we want these coals to start out hot and then slowly over time get a little bit lower. That way we can simmer this carne guisada to perfection. After about 5 minutes of preheating, we'll go ahead and take our lid off. We're going to spray down some Wagyu tallow, and now we're going to start browning our meat. I like to spread it out as evenly as I possibly can just to make sure everything has some surface contact here. And the goal here is not to overcrowd this Dutch oven. We want to make sure that everything gets a nice browning effect. This is going to release some water. We don't want that to cool down this Dutch oven too much, especially while we're searing. So you 100% could and should do this in batches. We'll go ahead and toss everything. You can see these nice brown bits. That's exactly what we're looking for. After we start seeing a little bit of browning, we're gonna go over top with our That Base all-purpose seasoning. If you guys wanna use salt, pepper, and garlic, that's completely fine. That Base has all of that in it. And just to reiterate, the goal here is not to fully cook this meat, but it's just to get browning on all sides. Once we're done with this, we'll pull it to the side and we'll go on to the next batch. You can see the water coming out of this beef now. We wanna wait for this to evaporate so we can continue to build that flavor on the outside. Round 1 of beef looks pretty good. This took about 5 or so minutes. Just gonna place it in a bowl, put it to the side, and work on the next batch. We can also throw these pork ribs in. And just like the beef, you'll see in just a few seconds, we're already building that color. And I will purposely move this meat around, try and make sure that I get good surface contact on every piece. Like this piece here, I wanna flip it over. This side looks good. I want the same thing on the opposite side. I'm gonna add my all-purpose seasoning here again. And that's exactly what I like to see. Little bits and pieces sticking to the bottom. That's gonna add flavor to our carne guisada. After another 3 minutes, the ribs are looking good. We'll take these out and put them in the same bowl as our brisket. Last round of brisket in. This was our last batch of brisket. We have good color, so we're gonna go ahead and add the ribs and the other batch of brisket back in. Now from here, we're gonna add 32 ounces of beef broth. And then we'll add enough water to make sure that we cover all the meat by about 1/2 inch. And to this now we're gonna add 1 white onion and 2 cans of fire roasted Rotel. We're gonna get everything nice and mixed. I'm also gonna use my spatula to scrape the bottom of this pan. If you remember all of those bits that were stuck to the bottom, that's called fond, and that's a lot of flavor. Now we'll go ahead and throw the lid on top of our Dutch oven and then put the lid back on our Weber Kettle. A few things we want to look for during this cook. Making sure we have enough fuel and making sure that there's enough liquid in this Dutch oven. If the liquid level ever looks like it's getting too low, you can always re-add water throughout the cook. I don't want to add any more beef broth. Water will do just fine. We also need to make sure that we have enough fuel. I only used 1 chimney of lump charcoal. That's likely not going to be enough for this whole cook, so we may need to add more just to make sure we get a nice simmer throughout. Right at an hour later, we want to check on our carne guisada. You can see that the liquid level is still really good. Everything is coming together nicely, and it smells out of this world. We're just gonna mix everything together a little bit, put this lid back on, and continue cooking. I'm still good on my fuel. I don't need to do anything. I added a few extra coals earlier, so I think we might not have to do anything. It's been 2 hours on our carne guisada, so now we want to check on our liquid levels again, and now that it's been that full 2 hours, we do want to start looking for tenderness. And again, we're looking really good on the level of our liquid. We still have a nice simmer going here, so I don't need to add any charcoal, any lump charcoal at all. Everything's going really good. What I want to do at this point is just leave these pieces over to the side for just a second to cool down, and then I'm going to squeeze them to check on that tenderness. Lid back on. Just a few seconds later, you can see that this is really tender, but I think it could go a little bit more. Let's taste it. It's definitely almost there, but I think it could be a little more tender. We're gonna go 30 more minutes, come back and see where we're at. Another 30 minutes later, so 2.5 hours total. We're gonna check our carne guisada again. You can definitely see that it's reduced quite a bit. Everything's looking and smelling delicious. Gonna go right into the middle, get a piece of this brisket out, and I kind of just want to see what the tenderness is like. And you can see that this right here is falling apart with ease. Now we're gonna add 5 tablespoons of Fiesta's carne guisada seasoning. We're gonna mix this with 3/4 cup of water, and this is gonna allow us to have a slurry that is gonna thicken up the broth that's in the carne guisada. If you look at the bottle, the first ingredient is cornstarch. That's what's gonna help us make that slurry. Also, if you ever have any questions about this carne guisada, we actually got the recipe from the side of this label. We're just gonna mix this together, and we're gonna pour this right into our carne guisada mixture. Now we're just gonna go ahead and mix everything together, replace the lid, and let this simmer for the next 15 minutes or until we get our desired consistency. It's been 15 minutes on our carne guisada. And you guys can see this is not quite the consistency that you're looking for. You want this a little bit thicker. So what we're gonna do, since we have a little bit more than the recipe calls for, just gonna go in with a few more tablespoons and make sure that this gets mixed all in. Now we're gonna let this carne guisada go for another 15 minutes before we check it for that perfect consistency. Another 15 minutes and 3 hours total later, this carne guisada is right at the consistency that I'm looking for. Everything is nice and thick, just like her, and this gravy is looking and smelling incredible. We're gonna go ahead and take this off, get it inside, let it cool down a little bit before we try it. Just over 3 hours later, our pitmaster carne guisada is completely done. Now we did just taste it for salt a second ago. It's perfect where we want, but at this point you guys could taste for salt, add some if you need to, but this is perfect for us. Now we're just gonna go ahead and dive in and let you guys know how we did. You can see that gravy's looking nice and thick now, really, really tender meat. I see some fire roasted tomatoes and peppers in there. Let's go ahead and take a bite. That is beyond perfect. Carne guisada beans and cheese has to be one of the greatest tacos ever created. So if you guys take this, add some beans, add some cheese, wrap it in a flour tortilla, it is going to be to die for. If you guys don't want to put the pork ribs in, that's completely fine, but it is the way that I was taught to make it by my buddy Fred. He makes this at barbecue competitions all the time, and I knew I had to show you guys this recipe. As always, we really appreciate you guys tuning into this video. Thanks, and we'll see you on the next one. I promise you, this might be the best carne guisada that I've ever had, and it's one of the first times I've ever made it. I impressed myself for once. This one's damn good. You don't need teeth.